All right, welcome back to the final phase of the talent acquisition and recruitment session on the Human Resource and Practice program. So, in the previous session, what we had looked at was how to, sort out for candidates, how to shortlist these candidates, and why viewing or reviewing their applications, the best practices with asking questions during interviews. So now we'll be looking at interview agenda and what should you consider in preparing for interviews. What should you do? Are there step by step processes or procedures that you should follow to have a successful interview session? We'll be looking at a few, so let's dive into it right away. Now, when you start interviewing candidates, it is best to greet the candidate first so that the atmosphere, can be soft. We're looking at soft landing here. So all forms of nervousness and pressure, tension between yourself or the candidate, especially the candidate, can be eased out. So the idea here is to have a friendly, wholesome atmosphere. So you greet the candidate briefly, introduce yourself. That's, you establish rapport by introducing yourself, right? When you introduce yourself, you also tell the candidates about what they are going to be entering into. All right. You can say a little about the application, about the company, about yourself, where you have the time to do so. Then you set the agenda for the day. What that means is that what you would tell the candidates, you will help the candidate understand what you are about to do, what areas or core areas you would like to focus on. I like to, if I've had the opportunity to go through the application process, if I was involved with the application process from day one, and I've had maybe first virtual session, and I'm beginning the person scale through that, the first and the second, the test, the aptitude test, and all that, and it's a face to face. Where I don't have clarity, I just go ahead and tell the candidate to skip some part of the interview process and go straight to answering the questions where I need clarity. Now, if I'm meeting you for the first time, or if I've met you in previous interviews for other positions, but maybe a different company for a different platform, and this candidate does not scale through. However, the candidate is, has reapplied for another position. I'll just let the candidate understand that, okay, all right, since we have met before, we could, go through some of the key areas as against, starting afresh. All right. So you can set the agenda of the day. Let the candidate be aware of exactly what you want to do. So if you have 15 minutes, let the candidate know what you will do in 15 minutes or in 10 minutes. So both of you have an understanding that you want to save time as well as maximize the opportunity of the interview. Then announce that you are taking notes. For those of us, we encourage you as an HR practitioner to take notes, yes, because you might not be able to remember something because of the number of persons you are likely to be sitting with in that period. Okay, so take notes and then let the candidate also know that you are taking notes if need be. If you need the candidate to also take notes, you can encourage the candidate to take notes. I like to take notes during an interview, either what, regardless of what position I'm taking, either I'm the interviewer or I'm the interviewee. I like to announce to the panelists that I'm also taking notes to make things, to make the conversation more, make the conversation flow. And then at the end of the day, no, I'm not telling them, okay, please, can you repeat? Can you repeat? Okay. All right. Then prepare your questions. This is advisable. Now, the point is that it is assumed that you have prepared some of your questions, at least the basic questions, ahead of the day of your interview, be it virtual interview or physical interview, right? Or on-site in-office interview. Now, whatever face-to-face you have chosen to do, whether online, virtual, or in-office, physical, the best thing is to do is that prepare at least the basic question. Now, as the candidate responds, you can also pick up other questions. I hope you get what I'm saying. All right. Then probe for clarity. All right. You must always ask if the candidate or the applicant understands the question. So for every question you give, ask them, are they clear? Do they have an understanding? Because some candidates will tell you that they don't understand, and they say something else. So to save time, let them be clear. Call their attention to this. Some candidates will actually just ask you, please, can you reiterate? Because I do not understand. Recently, I've had the opportunity to have conduct an interview for a senior position, and this candidate, for every question I asked, he will ask me the same question. In that, he needed me to reiterate. Please, I would like to clarify. Is this the question you asked? And then he repeats. And I like the fact that he was, restating this question so that he could get what clarity. Then make sure you have an understanding that the candidate understands what they are involving themselves with, as well as that they understand the process. Okay, then give candidates an opportunity to ask questions, especially at the end when you are wrapping up the session. Okay, can you ask, do you have questions for me? I like to say, do you have questions for me, or do you have questions for us? So it gives them the opportunity to ask. And then when they ask these questions, it also helps you to understand their thought process. Then also, just as I mentioned before, try as much as possible to describe the job as well as the organization you are interviewing for. All right. Describe the job as well as the organization. So, for example, if we have a recruitment outsourcing project sent over to Lighthouse, but it's not Lighthouse that is directly hiring for that position, what we tell our practitioners to do is that ensure that you tell the candidate about the company we are hiring on behalf of. So it helps them to be able to answer the questions clearly and also have the understanding of where they are going to. Then ask for references that verify job performance. Sometimes you might not have the time to actually tell them to mention their references, but let them understand that if they scale through the final stage of the interviews, they will undergo reference checks, and let them be, you know, give or take consent that and are comfortable with the fact that we're going to have to check your background, as it were, depending on the case. Then describe in the interview process. I mentioned that already. Escort candidate out is optional. Okay, it's optional. If it's a physical session and you don't have so many people on the if you don't have so many people in line, waiting in line to be interviewed, you can see them off up to the door. But where you don't have that time, it is okay for them to walk out, or there's somebody like a support staff, to walk them out and see them to the door. Where there's a virtual session, you just tell them that they can opt out of the interview platform, whatever platform you have chosen to use, while you wait for others to join you. Then private locations free from interruption. Whatever locations you have chosen to use, ensure that this is free from every form of background noise, distraction, or interruptions. Now, I hope this is clear. Now, in taking notes, it is important, just as I mentioned again, it is very critical that you take notes. Now, in taking notes, I mentioned already, inform the candidate to take notes. You also encourage the candidate to take notes, inform the candidate you are taking notes in case there are pauses, where you are pausing during the conversation. Let them understand that during those little pauses, this is what is going on. Write down the positives, write down the negative. Use keywords and phrases to be able to remember some of this, your key conversation. You don't have to download the entire conversation. Do you understand? So just pick up keywords that is going to help you to do what? To remember the conversation. If you have code, key, and facts, also put that down. After the interview, evaluate the behavior of the candidates. All right. When you listen, if it's a virtual interview, when you are listening to the conversation, you will be able to pick all that, at least that is required for that particular phase of the interview process. Then make sure your conclusions have supporting example. Supporting example in the sense that whatever question you ask your candidate, what happens is that I usually encourage that you ask them for examples in their previous experiences or in their previous workplaces. Okay, so what happened? Have you had this experience where this happened? Could you share with us? Now, when you make these notes, you can always, pinpoint using support your conclusions using those examples. With that, you've been able to, measure evaluate their behavior and use these key examples to support your conclusions. All right. Now, the do's of interviewing. There are certain things that we must do when we are conducting interviews. There are certain things that we should avoid as HR practitioners when we are conducting interviews. In doing so, number one, ask candidates the same questions. If you need to give at least the same basic foundational questions, if you need to give the benefit of doubt, whatever you're asking candidate A should be the same you're asking candidate B. Now, however, take note, as you dive deeper into the interviews, you will get to understand that there are certain questions that will come out of their experiences. Bearing in mind that no same candidates have had the same experiences, because probably because their behavior, the industry they came out from, or they have worked or they have built their career journey so far. So bear this in mind. But whatever foundational introductory questions you are dishing out to this candidate must be the same to play fair. Then use an interview guide. Design an interview guide and work, with that guide. Find out the type of work or the environment, the management style the candidate prefers. Okay. And the best way to do this, it might not be a direct question, is to build scenarios. Ask scenario or situational questions. If you build a scenario and share with them, or you ask behavioral or situational questions, you will be able to determine the type of work environment, the type of management style that candidate prefers without outrightly, asking them these direct questions. Because sometimes some candidates do not actually know, or they've not been able to articulate the kind of management style that they prefer to work on. They might be able to give you a vague response as to the kind of work environment they like. Some have been able to articulate this, determine this, and they will tell you outrightly, this is the kind of work environment I prefer, this is the kind of management style I prefer. But where people are not aware of this, dish out, give them behavioral questions, situational analysis to help them express themselves, and in their conversations or in their responses you'll be able to give answers to that. Then do engage multiple members of current staff for interview. Do not do your interviews alone. All right, especially when you are dealing with a large number of persons, group of people. Get a team to be on the interview board with you. Then what questions can you ask in an interview? You can ask questions like, um do I need to ask questions, all the candidates questions? Would I ask all candidates this particular question? Is it relevant for the job? So whatever questions you're asking, as I said before, ask foundational questions that are the same, that cuts across all industries, depending on the candidate. However, when you begin to dive deeper into this interview process per person, you will find out that the questions becomes dynamic, unique to that individual's experience in or their job trajectory. Now, ask questions that are relevant, okay, especially to their performance in the past and in the future. Then ensure that there are no discriminations in asking questions. Ensure that there's no form of discrimination, whether gender bias or body shaming or religious or political affiliations. Ensure that there's no form of discrimination when you are answering or asking these questions. Okay. Now, at the end of the interview, it is important that you review your notes to see if you need further clarification. So you don't have to call the candidates back. Now, in cases where you missed out some things, it's okay to reach out to the candidates one on one, maybe via the contact address or email address. Give them a call and let them know that you missed one or two points and you will need clarification. But when you are taking notes, ensure that you review your notes to see if there is need for any more information that you need to ask. Provide an overview of the position and the role in the organization. We mentioned that. Now, the reason why you are seeing this over and over again, because these are very critical points that you cannot overlook. Okay, do not provide feedback that could interpret as implied promise for employment. Yes, there are sometimes when I have to warn employers when I have to warn employers that we don't do reviews in the presence of, or you don't make certain corrections in the presence of the candidate, that gives them the impression that they want, you are giving them an offer. So ours is to identify their strengths and their weaknesses, their behaviors, their behavioral pattern, and see if they're a close fit for the job, not lecture them as to the wrongs or the rights. Where you begin to lecture them, get familiar with these candidates, sometimes we give them the impression that, they are the best fit for the job, and then they are waiting. In cases where you have been, you are carried away and you have done this, or you are not the head of the panel, but an employer was part of the panel and made such error, by the time you are wrapping up the interviews, let the candidate know that they are just one out of the pool, and that once we are done our reviews, we will let them know if they scale through the interview process and will be given an offer, or they do not scale through the interview process and will be turned down. Okay, but say it in such a respectful and beautiful manner. Okay, that's good. So I hope you are giving you I hope you understand all that I've said so far. Now, fourthly, verify that the candidate is interested in the position. Sometimes these candidates are just looking for a job, all right, just to leave the house and earn some money. And the moment they get what they really want, what they do is that they just up and leave and keep your hand, and then you go back to start the process all over again. So verify that that candidate is interested in the position, you know, and then elicit questions and provide answers. So ask for questions, provide answers, explain the interview process and the next step of action. So while you are wrapping up your interview process, your interview session, make sure you let them know this is the next stage of the interview at the end of the interview. Appreciate the candidate for coming or for showing up for the virtual session. If you need to escort, fine, but where you can't escort, they are free to exit the interview. Now, this is about the interview. Now, let's talk about selection. We have completed our interview process. Now, it is time to pick the candidate that we are interested in giving an offer. And what do you need to consider in this stage four? In stage four in the selection process, we are looking at evaluating objectively. We evaluate the entire interview process, from the job advertisement to the application, to putting the job out, to sorting out those candidates, to reviewing their applications, to shortlisting the candidate. Evaluate objectively without bias or emotional attachment to any particular candidate, and ensure that you are doing the right thing. Then you are checking for references. All right, you are checking for their response versus what they have placed in their CVs. Sometimes ago, before this particular recording was made, I had the opportunity of conducting an interview, and everything the candidate said contradicted what was written in the CV. The dates were wrong, the candidate said things differently, and the candidate had a copy of the CV before them. At least they were the ones who submitted it. But we realized that what this person was saying was just contradictory. He couldn't defend himself, so we had to correct him over and over and over again as regards what he had presented during his application. Okay. Now, making the contingent job offer will also be considered in this stage, and then conducting background checks where necessary. But it's important that we do so. All right. Now, let's dive straight into it. Evaluate the candidate in selecting the best fit to fit the role. Okay, understand the selection criteria in advance and mentioned that already. Complete the assessment while interview is fresh in mind. So please don't conduct your interview in January and then you want to make your evaluations in March or in April or in July. Okay, there are so many key details that you likely would have missed, even when you take notes. Okay, so whatever assessment you need to do while conducting that interview is that, or at the end of the interview, is that ensure that your assessment is done almost immediately. If I'm sitting on the board, on an interview board, and the employer is with me, regardless, the moment the candidate is leaving, if it's a face-to-face on-site interview, we will always have maybe like 2 minutes to quickly evaluate the candidate who just left. All right, we might not give detailed evaluation analysis of that candidate, but whatever notes we have taken, we quickly look at it. If the person will proceed, we will put it, set it aside. We will keep in view for further conversations once the entire team or the entire interview is completed. The moment we agree that, oh no, this individual candidate is not going to fly, we set it aside and we keep in view for future references or a complete no-no. All right. So please, when you are doing your assessment, ensure that your interview is done fresh in mind. Now, assess candidates' response in all selection area. Yes, assess their responses. Okay. Be sure you hear them correctly, not what you think you heard. Again, where you miss it, look at them, evaluate them, and give them a call where need be. Then compare to skill proficiency level. You already know the kind of skills that is required to take on the role, right? Now compare if these people, these candidates have the right skill. Base your conclusion on facts, examples, and your observation, okay? Not on your bias. Base whatever conclusions you are making on facts, on their responses, the examples given, as well as what the observation. Identify their strengths and their limitation in each area. So in case you are taking up that candidate, you know what you are going to be dealing with once the person is onboarded. All right, then note areas of weaknesses and weak data for discussions, for further discussion. Participate in interview team discussions. I mentioned it already. So after the interviews are concluded, make sure you sit down and discuss it thoroughly. Okay, so you are sure that you are taking the candidate as they ought to be taken. Now, the selection process. What should this your selection process look like? Prepare the job offer. We have picked up the individual, we have seen the best fit. Now, how do I proceed from here? Prepare the job offer. Notify the talent acquisition team if you are not part of them. All right. When approaching the finalists, the moment you pick your best fit, prepare an offer, prepare the job offer, notify the hiring team. If you are not part of them, if you are not the one heading them, notify your superiors. If external candidates, talent acquisition should reach out for an HR interview the moment you have your best fit. Now you are to discuss the details of the offer with the talent acquisition team and then also with the finance team. It is assumed before you get to this stage that the salary scale or the budget has been stated, has been scheduled, and has been concluded. However, when adjustment needs to be made based on the conversations and on the conclusions, on the reviews from the interview, then adjustment should be made. So salary expectation, the start date. So where you will need them to resume maybe like July 1st, but the person is not available because of a lieu of notice of maybe 45 days or 2 months or 30 days, then it means adjustment needs to be done. Then manager needs to complete the position offer detail form. This is where a structured organization exists. Now, where, like for example, Lighthouse HR company, upon getting an offer, you know that the hiring manager should fill this form so that the complete details should be placed on the offer letter so nothing is missing. No detail of the employment is missing. The employee should have all knowledge or information required to accept or reject the offer. Now, check references. There are some cases where you will need to check the reference before giving the person an offer. In some cases, it might not apply. Some people will actually have to give the offer, then conduct these reference checks. All right, because some organizations will actually tell you that no, you do not have right to question us when you have not given an offer. But if you have such policies where you can conduct reference checks ahead of giving the offer, please let the company you are checking for references is aware. All right, good afternoon, company A. Please, this company is giving, will want to give so and so person an offer of employment. Please, what is your thoughts on, or will you say a thing or two about the individual? We would like to vet this, and this. But most of the time, what I have experienced and seen is that an offer is given, then these references are checked. All right. And the reason why I say this is because some organization might be willing to offer such references truthfully without any bias or pulling down the candidate. But some organizations, although mean well, some employers, some employees or executives will tell you that, especially if this person or this candidate left on a not so nice note, all right, some people might not be willing to say good about the organization. So some will tell you, if I don't have him, like gatekeepers, you will not enter, and I will not enter, I will not allow you to enter. All right, something like that. That's an example. So sometimes we just tell you, okay, give the person an offer, and let the candidate know that upon verification, where there are questionable references that are valid, the offer will be withdrawn. All right, please bear this in mind. Then check for references, check for health check, check for last previous employment. Okay, request for at least two external references that are not directly family member. One could be, there are some cases it might not necessarily be family member. There are some cases where one will be family member and one will be previous employment, okay? Or a career, a mentor, a professional that can refer or reference the candidate. If it's an internal finalist, the finalist direct supervisor can also serve as a reference. So, for example, where there is an open position and you have an employee who is willing to take up the new offer, your former, previous, or your current supervisor can serve as a reference, to take up this new position. Always have a reference check form so you can always refer as the case may be. All right. Now, make the contingent job offer. Make the contingent job offer. HR can extend an offer of employment, especially if you are the final say or your superiors have given you the go ahead. All right, the contingent offer is pending, just as I mentioned, upon background checks. So this offer is just temporarily. It's going to be established where we have found out that all reference checks are valid, are correct, okay, are accurate. HR is to submit this background check afterwards. Now, in conducting background checks, ensure that background check must be conducted for all employees, not just one and then you leave the other. Now, let the candidate also know that it will may take about 2 weeks, about 3 weeks to get all feedbacks from the organization. Certain positions may require certain checks, either technical checks, professional checks, including medical checks, depending. Then plan accordingly. Please don't just use the shotgun approach. Ensure that you plan. Finalists cannot start in the position until all background checks are done and are approved by the human resource department. All right. I hope we understand this. So do not just assume that everything is done and completed and then let the person begin to resume immediately without background checks being completed, so it doesn't become what problem. Now, if candidate doesn't accept the position, what happens? To determine the with talent acquisition, that's your hiring manager or your superior, determine with them these key points. One, to offer the position to the next best candidate, that's the second best fit, all right? Or to reassess the candidate pool and invite new people to be interviewed for the role. Okay, so if you give an offer and the candidate is not interested in taking the offer, or we could not have a win-win or reach a conclusion, what should you do? Reach out to the next best candidate if approved, or go back, return to the pool and interview more people for the position. Okay. Now, if candidates accept the position, notify the person interview notify in person, sorry, the candidate that had been interviewed that they were not selected. That is for people who were not selected. Where an offer has been accepted, those who did not scale through the process, it is important. Respect for their time, respect for the time that they had, showed up for the interview, respect for their well-being, their emotional well-being. Please reach out to them and notify them that they were not selected. Please, in such a respectful manner, not in a demeaning manner. Let them understand that they are on your pool and they will be, you know, they will be further referred to other job opportunities that closely fits their experience and their career journey in the nearest future. Send your talent acquisition specialist or your hiring manager some critical list of candidates you personally notify to prevent duplicate communication, especially in cases where you are not the only one on that particular project. Information must be shared for the position, either gender or race, of all those who were interviewed for the sake of keeping data. All right. Contact the new hire to welcome and confirm the start date. So when you have given an offer, please confirm from them by calls, by chats, by messaging, by emails, whatever form you can use to easily reach out to these candidates. Confirm from them that they are, one, they've accepted the offer again, two, the day that they will be resuming, where the stated date does not work for them. Then prepare yourself for onboarding. All right. Communication, inform all staffs and the employees of the new hire's arrival. Oh, we are going to be having a new hire, a new member of the team. This is the day the person is resuming. Let's plan ahead of their welcome. Then consider logistics also, workspace, office supplies, computer equipment, where it might apply. If they have uniforms, protective gears, ensure that this is readily available ahead of resumption. Then plan or schedule their training and the first day activities. I have a template that I work with, a 30-day, the 60-day, and the 90-day plan, because I usually will recommend that you run a 3-month onboarding program for to comprehensively onboard or train this individual. So there's no question that, oh, I never saw it, I was never told, I did not know. As much as I don't like hearing that. So when I begin to hear that, my question was, that was onboarding properly done? So where onboarding is not properly done, of course, you will the candidate will not have a good start. The candidate will just be bombarded with so much information, even if the company is pressed for time in hiring people to replace you and replace an exiting staff and all that. But you must understand that what the onboarding has to be properly done. Okay. Have a 30-day plan, have a 60-day plan, have a 90-day plan. In the 30-day, break it into 4 weeks. Okay. Week one, week two, week three, 5 days each, or 3 days each, or 4 days each. What are we going to do? Once this schedule is done, this plan is done, you just know you are coming and you are hitting the ground running. You are not guessing, you're not boxing shadows, you're not saying that I'm not sure what we're going to do today. I hope this is very clear. Now, the final stage, which is the onboarding stage. What am I expected to do? In this stage, you are talking about preparing before the employee starts, university orientation, in this case, institutional orientation, what is going to happen about the company, about the institution, about the NGO, about the organization, depending on what platform you are working with. Then departmental orientation, what are we going to be discussing? What should we cover? Now, why is onboarding so critical? Why is it important? In conducting an onboarding program, you are providing a welcoming, professional welcome. You're welcoming the new hire. You are giving a first impression, a best welcome impression, as well as sharing the tools and the resources that is necessary to ensure that the new hire succeeds in that organization. Please don't, I cannot overemphasize this, and please don't overlook the importance of onboarding. You want to give that employee a first good impression, that you are selling your company as an employer brand. You are saying that welcome to the best place of your career journey, from here. We don't know where you are coming from. We don't know if you have had a good experience, but the moment you step into our doors, in this company, in Lighthouse HR company, What you are saying is that this is the best place you will work and you will ever work. That is the best impression I need an HR practitioner to carry on with. All right. The moment you have a new hire, it's not that you are carrying on a frowning face, showing that, oh, I don't know why they are coming. I don't know why, the moment they see your countenance is not welcoming at all. No, we don't want people like that. As an HR practitioner, it is important that, and this is not just about our culture at Lighthouse, it also applies in all organizations that I have encountered, and every employee also wants their brand to be known as a best employer brand. So, as an HR practitioner, whatever platform or business or company you are working in, and you are onboarding a new hire, please give it your best shot. Provide them with a beautiful, welcoming, homely address. Ensure that the work environment is professional, you know the ambience is on point, is welcoming, they're happy to come. Let their first day be the first best day ever. Provide the necessary information about the company's culture, and it's not just about the things you say, it is about the things you do. So if you say this is how our company culture is, and then you are interpreting something different. So if you say in our company we run a friendly professional environment, and you are not giving the friendly vibes, of course you are saying one thing and your body language is interpreting another. I'm not saying you should go all lovey-dovey and hugging the person. Oh, no, 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 no. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is that you should ensure that you are giving, and you're giving the kind of vibe, the positive vibe, the happy, welcome home kind of vibe. Do we understand? Okay, so also cover compliance items, policies to the new hire, standard operating procedures, what employee handbook, the policies, the document, contracts of agreement that needs to be signed, and other onboarding document that needs to be shared to get the work going. So give clarity to the position and to the performance expectations. All right. If you need to do this with the technical team or with the supervisor from another department, so that's cross-departmental functions or cross-departmental team, bring them on board. Let them come together with the HR department with you to make sure that the onboarding is properly done. Then ensure that a connection between all colleagues and all department and the company itself is done. Let there be a connection. Do not stand alone, and do not encourage the new hire to do things on their own. Every company likes the fact that there is teamwork. Okay, there is friendship within the office as much as professionalism in delivering on primary duties and responsibilities. Do not overshoot our stand or over exaggerate the culture, where because, okay, because we are friendly, we're all at home at work, we run this particular kind of culture that we forget to do the job, and we forget to be professional in carrying on our tasks. Now, what are the stages of onboarding? This is the final and the last. Prior to employees arrival, inform the staff of the employees arrival. Please don't make this mistake. Don't let it look like there's a stranger in the building. All right. Fine. There might be a stranger in the building, but don't let it seem so that nobody's aware that someone was coming. Right from the day the offer was given, accepted, and documents signed, inform the rest of the staffs that we have a new arrival. Set up a clean workspace for the employee. Get the team responsible for cleanliness, janitorial services to make sure that the office space or the desk space, the workspace or the workplace that employee is going to be working from is tidy, clean, welcoming. Work with other departments to obtain a set of equipment for their work where need be, where this applies. Okay. From the first day, begin the orientation. All right. Tour the office, introduce them to the facility, introduce them to other people, show them where the kitchenette is, where you have the eating area, show them where the convenience is, the one that's for general, the one that is out of bounds, the one that belongs to the where the new hire is supposed to use. Ensure that there's somebody to take them around where it is not you. Check with the new hire, review their work schedule, review the dress code, review the office protocols, let them know the do's and the don'ts within the office. Make sure this is done from the very first day the new hire resumes. Now, at the end of your first week, you must have introduced the new hire to all staffs. Ensure please that this is done. You must have established access to appropriate computing resources where you leverage technology or technological tools within the office. Electronic files where you do not have printing, maybe there's a database that must be accessed by the new hire. The limits of the database, um, sign in or login details where need be, where you have copiers, photocopiers, fax machines, printing machines, internet facility, where all of this needs to be known. Now, where this is not necessary, leave it alone. But if this is necessary, make sure that it is done, and then you kickstart from there. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you have questions, please share them on the WhatsApp community during our live forum, or drop a comment at the just below this training program, this video, and then we will respond to you as soon as possible. Enjoy your day.